maybe sharing what you were able to share with us last Saturday at the A-Team meeting. Pretty powerful tool, and yeah, just see where we can go.
Sure. Let me, now, what I didn't have at the AT meeting this last weekend was a PowerPoint, but I didn't. I created one here today to kind of keep me on track with what I wanted to say. Thanks everybody. Thanks Tom. Thanks Bo. Thanks Steve for Gilzer for getting all this together. So I'm going to go ahead and give the same demo that I did last Saturday at the AT meeting on the underwriter tool. I call it a tool because it's, oops, there's a little bit of a latency here. Because it is still Excel spreadsheet, but nonetheless there are some aspects to it that make it a lot easier to use for keeping track of all the different kind of people that you need to keep track of. So I first wanted to compare, like I did last Saturday, the deal analyzer versus what I'm calling the underwriter. The deal analyzer, as most everybody knows, or who has used it, helps you structure the financials of your loan and within the bounds of your lending criteria. So that means things like LTV, interest rate, profit sharing points. It allows you to kind of control the first or second position and most of the costs associated with structuring a deal before it goes off to be funded. But one of the things that doesn't cover is where the underwriter kind of comes into play for all the other documents you need to track. The deal analyzer also helps you create summary sheets and borrower term sheets and money partner deal summary sheets. Those are other tabs within the deal analyzer. But then there were so many other things that I and plenty of other people needed above and beyond the deal analyzer, and that's what we're going to get to today. So the why. I created this tool pretty much for myself, but it was also based on a lot of trial and error of keeping track of things for deals that led up to the deal, but also deals as they were going in flight, meaning that they were already funded and now the rehabber's working on them. But I also found out that so many other people were running into this very same sort of thing where they would use an Excel spreadsheet or any other sort of tool to kind of list all the various kind of things that they wanted to track. But like anything else, you're adding to your underwriting criteria for, say, a deal, and you're constantly having to update it, which is great, but it sometimes can be sort of a pain to kind of go retroactively back to all these deals that you may have in flight that you may want to still add that underwriting criteria to. For example, if you have a deal, deal number one that's gone full, it's now in flight, and you've added to underwriting criteria for it, but then you have another one come in the door. Now you have to kind of match up those underwriting criteria and just make sure everything's in sync. So what I found was even though it was cool that it was in an Excel spreadsheet, it did become still tedious to kind of go back and forth between these deals to make sure that the underwriting criteria was all sort of in sync. The who here is kind of interesting too. What I found was, as I kind of moved along with this tool, was that like most people, I started underwriting the borrower and the deals, but as I came to realize, it became a lot more flexible tool to do this very same thing with, say, the deal sponsors or other people or things that I wanted to kind of track, like servicing companies and whatnot, and I'll show you that a little bit here too. So for example, with the tool, I'm going to show you how I in this demo today, how I use it for tracking borrowers and deals, but it could very well easily be expanded out to deal sponsors, money partners, builders control, servicing, and whatever else you want to kind of track. So to me, underwriting doesn't just stop, as it does perhaps with many people, with the notion that you're underwriting a deal or you're underwriting a borrower, but you're also underwriting so many other things, or you could underwrite so many other things, but I don't think most people are doing that. So the other aspect of this was the process aspect of it. One was I found that there was a clear separation. Anybody who's kind of does underwriting knows that there's a data collection phase, a data review phase, and the actual underwriting phase. And all of us tend to do all those simultaneously, but you can in fact separate those and let somebody else handle the data collection and another person do the data review and the underwriting. And I'll be showing you all of that in the tool. So the other thing I was trying to achieve with this was the flexibility of customizing the underwriting criteria to suit your needs. I really wanted it to be the case that it was more of a platform within Excel, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But the key here is that I did not want to push out there an underwriting criteria because everybody has their own underwriting criteria, and they're going to want certain things in there and not want certain other things. So this tool would allow you to not only create your own custom criteria, but you could also import from other private lenders if you wanted to as well that may be using this tool. So for example, if somebody else was using the tool, they can give you their version of underwriting criteria and you just copy and paste it into yours. So it's a sharing kind of experience. And so that allows for an easy tailoring of the underwriting. All right, so how do I do this? It's simple. It's still within an Excel spreadsheet, but there is a template, and the template is a single a tab, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But that template is then whenever you create a new instance of a borrower or a deal or whatever it is that you're creating an instance of, you'll see here in a second here that essentially that template is copied over to an instance of a new borrower, let's say, or a new deal. The underwriter does not prescribe an underwriting criteria, but it does support user-defined underwriting criteria. All right, so demo time. So I kind of wanted to show you what you don't want to pay attention to because it's very easy to probably get overwhelmed if you never, even if you know Excel pretty well, you're going to go, wow, there's a lot of tabs here. The thing I want to kind of say right off the bat is treat this like a website because many, if not all of the things that I'm going to show you are involving hyperlinks in terms of navigation. The very first tab on the far, far left is called Dashboard. And right on this dashboard right now, I'm only showing the ability to enter and track new real estate investors, meaning borrowers, and then the deals themselves for single family. And so you'll see here in a second. So if I click on the real estate investor, you can see that there's none listed here, but there will be here shortly once I create a new one. But you can click on dashboard and go back to the dashboard anytime. So I'm going to go ahead and create one, and I'll just type in the borrower. Sorry, Bo. Now I'll forewarn you, you're going to see some screens kind of flash, flash, flash here when I press OK. That's essentially the macro running, and it's copying over the template over to the new instance. So you see a lot of flashing going on right now, and it's just making sure that everything gets copied over there properly. Okay, I'll wait for the dust to settle here, perhaps on the video. It should say now on your screen a little message box that says your new real estate investor sheet has been created. Now, Bo, the borrower sitting there right now, you can in fact navigate back to the dashboard and you can go back to the real estate investor list. But let's go drill down now on this borrower. Now, like I said in the demo I did on Saturday, which I think is a good reminder here, what I'd like you to pay attention to, at least for a few seconds here, is just columns C and D, because I know that all of these other things are going to be overwhelming. So don't pay attention to anything here from F onward. We'll get to those shortly. So field C is just, or column C is just all the fields that you are part of the underwriting criteria in this Excel spreadsheet. Again, you can tailor these to be whatever you want, and I'll show you that later on in the demo. The D column is really all the data. So for example, the name of the borrower is Bo, and I could enter in all of his other information. You can define what that information is at any time. So that's true for all of these, and I'll kind of go one by one on these. So let's say we created this new borrower and we wanted to start collecting information on the borrower. Now let's talk about this whole group here called collection. The do column, and let me go column by column here and explain what these mean. Do means that it's a field that you intend on collecting data. It's something you need to do. Either it's going to be done or you're going to skip it. You're going to choose to skip it, and that's what column G and H are all about. So you can see here, I'm going to say that his name is already filled, and you can see there in column H or column K, it's showing 100%. Now, I want to kind of talk about that here. As I go down this list here, the goal is to get all these things done or skipped. In this case, Bo's name we knew, and we simply put a 1 there. If we chose to skip any of these fields, like right now, let's say that we don't have Bo's, let's go with, I'll pretend I know Bo's email address, bo@gmail.com. Okay, so we have his address. I'm going to skip these other fields, and I'm going to actually put a 1 in the skip column. So you can see here now that whole section is marked 100% complete. Now, I'm going to go ahead and type in, say, Bo lives in San Jose, California. And yes, in fact, he does single-family rehab. These are all fields that I, in fact, collected for him. I know he doesn't do new construction, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip that. I know he focuses on that. So one by one, your goal is to kind of sweep down top to bottom and make sure that you get to 100% on the data collection. Let's say he specializes in homes that are $100,000, $20,000 rehab, and an ARV of $180,000. So we filled in all of those, and the girls are 100% now. Now, some of these fields are gray, and that's definable by your template. In this case, it was just simply trying to do a simple, very simple, this is just for demonstration purposes, ROI calculation. All I did was took the ARV and divided it by the purchase price in the rehab. And so I left that as a 1 field because I just wanted to confirm what the ROI was. Again, every single one of these things that I'm showing you are configurable by you. And let's say it was days on market of 90 days. So keep in mind, we're in the data collection phase. We're not trying to review it from an underwriting perspective. This is the kind of thing you can hand off to somebody if you have an assistant and have them completely fill in this whole data collection phase. Let's say Bo had $20,000 on hand, no other collateral, so we skipped that. In fact, I'll say yes, I asked that question, but he has none. And any other assets, I'm just going to go ahead and skip that. And key documents, let's say I got that key document and C file. I'm just going to say C file. We'll just pretend that we have a directory open and that we received the credibility package. I'm kind of going down the happy path of this, meaning everything I got was 100%, and I'm not trying to say I needed other information. All right, so I'm going to conveniently put those at 100% just for the sake of showing you. So you can see that now we're at 100%. If you were to go back to the control panel, we're finished with the data collection phase. There may be instances where you are waiting for information. Let's just say, for example, I did not get his credibility package just yet. And let's say, and now let's talk about I and J. Flag means I want to flag it as something I want to make sure I ask about. Okay, I may not have asked for it yet, and there might be a laundry list of things that I want to ask about or flag to ask. but I'm tallying those up. So when I'm ready to kick out a response to the borrower saying I need this set of things, I now can go down my flag list and say, okay, what are all those things? The moment I send out that email, I could just simply mark that as I've asked for it. So now if I go back to the main control panel, I could see that I'm nearly done collecting all the information that I wanted to get for this borrower, and I flagged one item and I asked the borrower about that. And so I can't really, at least from a process standpoint, I've chosen not to go onto the review phase just entirely yet until I get everything from that person. But that doesn't mean I can't. I can, in fact, go down to the review column here. I'm going to sort of pause here just for a brief moment. I wanted to leave the bigger Q&A questions to the very end, but I wanted to pause here and see if there were any confusion aspects of what I've shown so far. I know that not everybody can talk, but maybe you can type in your questions in the chat window. So is there any question about at least what I've shown so far? There's several other things I'm going to show you here in a second, which are along the same lines. Terry asked if we can add rows, and I'll show you how to do that. I heard somebody talking.
Oh, Michael, I was just sharing that when I think it was Swanee had asked if this would be available afterward. Recording will be available, yes, on what is it, the ateamhangout.com. All right, Bill. Yes, it'll be posted on the ateamhangout.com. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to continue on here with everything. Let's go down the happy path again. There's so many different ways you can kind of go down not happy path, but I'm going to go down the happy path of saying that we got everything. And I'll get to Terry's question in a little bit here with regards to adding on rows. So let's just say that we've collected all the information. We're at 100%. Now it can go into the review stage. Review is not necessarily going to say you've approved it or rejected it, but it's just simply saying that you're identifying either risks or things that you're okay with. So let's just say that we ability package and there are some elements to it that we just didn't like. So I'm going to mark that as a 1. By the way, in another version that I have, this would have been turning it a red color, and the OK column would have been green color, so it would have been a little bit more obvious. So that'll be in future versions, but right now you kind of have to look with ones. But you could see several other things that you're happy about. You might be very happy about the ROI and other things. You can just simply flag those. This is just an opportunity to, I'm sorry, I flagged the wrong one. If you like the ROI right there. Now, let's talk about the done column. Now, there may be neither here nor there reasons for either a risk or that you like it, but either way, you're done with the review process for each and every one of these things. Again, this is sort of a systematic approach to saying, not only did you collect the information, but now you've also reviewed it. And again, this could be something that you do on your own or that you hand off to somebody else. So I'm going to kind of just fill all these in as completed. Now I'm going to intentionally skip that one. Now this one had a risk element to it. Now you can choose to say I've totally evaluated that and that's end of story, and yes, I've reviewed it. But the bottom line is you may still fail that on the underwriting. But there is a way to also flag something as saying that you're okay with it too. A risk is, you can have a risk, but you can also be okay with that risk. Just as long as you flag it and you are having proper mitigation, let's say. So let's say I'm okay with that risk. So what you can see at the very top here is that I've got one risk, and that one risk I'm okay with. So that from a control panel standpoint, if I were to go back to the underwriting page, the summary page for all the borrowers, you could see it sort of balances out. So there's nothing that would show up as a red flag necessarily at this point. So let's go to the underwriting step, and then I'll pause once again after that. So let's go one by one here. We're going to say either we approve it, reject it, I'm thinking about adding on another column that says I'm neither here nor there. Approval is not necessary, meaning it's nothing. I don't need to approve his name is the point, but this sort of forces you to. So I'm going to kind of say I approve of all these things. Again, this could be yet another person that does the underwriting. If you have a person, enough people on your team that can collect data, review it, and then a third person to underwrite it if you want to. Oops. So we're coming back to this same line item where we, is flagged as a risk. You're okay with it, but really it's the underwriter who really can make a decision at this point. You could say, I'm still gonna reject that. I don't like that aspect of it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole thing is rejected at this point. I'll get to the final decision aspect in a little while ago, but the underwriter just simply didn't like that even after it was in the review process. And you could put a comment over here on the far right, either from the borrower, from the collector, the reviewer, or the underwriter. It doesn't matter. So let's get to the final thing. And this is where it becomes now subjected to whatever it is in your organization for underwriting. Now you say, okay, I'm going to reject, this is just free form text. I'm going to reject the borrower because of too little experience. Even though they provided the credibility package, there were still some risky elements to it. Now, I'm going to show you what priority and final mean. Priority is just a way for you to prioritize, and I'll get to that a little bit. On the main borrower page, you're going to have a laundry list of borrowers. You're going to have different reasons for prioritizing them. I put it arbitrarily at 50 as sort of as a neutral point on both the priority as well as final, and it's your opportunity to say, is it more than neutral or less than neutral? Neutral meaning 50% just means that it's neither here nor there in your priority list. If you wanted to bubble them up to a higher priority in terms of they're kind of cranking, that borrower is kind of giving you information on a really quick basis, then you may want to bubble up your interaction with them. And then the final decision is, again, it's 50-50 is just a happy spot in the middle. It's whatever scale you want to make it. Let's just simply say that scale of reject is 30 to me. And so if I go back to the main page here, I can see that anything I sort by priority, it'll bubble to the top accordingly. And if I sort it for final, it'll go that way. So I can kind of balance how I would want. If I had a list of anybody who's familiar with Excel, I could highlight actually a whole row of borrowers and sort based on any of these criteria. And I could say sorted on priority or sorted on final. That way I can kind of bubble to the top the ones that borrowers that I've not only underwritten, but I actually want to work with. So I'm going to pause here for a moment and let people ask questions in the chat window, but then I'm going to go on to showing everybody how to add on new rows to their underwriting criteria, and I think that was Terry's question. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Bo, were there any questions in the chat window?
I don't see any in my chat window, Michael.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to add on your own criteria as an example. I'll show the same real estate investor template. By the way, everything I've just now shown you is identical for the deal, but there's obviously different underwriting criteria sitting inside of that. So if you just click on Edit Template from the main row right there, just say Edit Template. And it's all the same thing. And let's say that under Key Documents, I want to add on one more thing here. The way you add it is just copy an existing row and then insert that row. And the macro requires you to put an X right there, right next to it, so it knows to add that on. And I'm going to call this, or I'm going to say, oops, Oh, my screen flickered. I'm going to say that this is a, can you guys still see my screen okay? There we go. So I'm going to say this is requires permits or get all permits. Permits. I'm just going to say permits. So if this is a new field here for your underwriting, yeah.
Nothing's being shared at the moment, and at some point in time we lost the chat window.
Yeah, reshare that then.
So I'm not sure exactly what happened to the chat window or the video.
Okay, looks like it's sharing again. So if you added on permits here in the template and put an X next to it, that is all you have to do to have subsequent deals or real estate investors. Actually, that's probably a bad example because you don't have permits for real estate investors. So I'm going to go back there. I'm going to say pictures, before and after pictures. I know that's part of credibility, but I'll say that anyway. It's before and after pictures. All right. So now if I click on new now and add on Tom, the borrower, it does its macro copying of the template and filling in the key fields, and it'll shortly here add it onto the main borrower list. It's funny, it runs a lot slower here when we're in this video presentation mode. Usually it takes about half or less. So here you have Bo, the one we originally had, and Tom now is the new one. You can actually see here at the very high level that there's a new field here. There's 22 dues, and the previous one had 21. So if you actually go drilling down on that one, and for Tom, you can see that now before and after pictures are part of this particular underwriting criteria, and you start from the top of underwriting this new borrower. So that's how you add on a new field. But that would be true for any of these. You can actually add on whole new sections if you wanted to. If I wanted to create a whole new category that's based on something like this, I would just simply copy all this whole set and just make sure I put X's on each of the new rows that that I was adding. So I'll show you the deal one, but it's really identical. The list is right there. The template is right here. You can add on your own fields of all sorts of different kinds. Looks like we might have lost share again. Give me a second. We lost my webcam, that's what it is. So any questions? That's pretty much it for my demo. Oh, one thing I did not notice right now, it's just with borrowers and deals, as you can see there, but we're kind of looking at maybe the next step here, if depending on the interest level. Ziggy, the gentleman that was at the last AT meeting, had volunteered to be the point person to kind of collect people who were interested in becoming beta users of this. And if there was enough critical mass and there was enough interest and it seemed like it was a worthy enough tool, be happy to share this with the rest of the community. So that's it for me. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Michael. It had a lot of good, really good comments from this Saturday, so that interesting to hear comments from people here now. Bo, are you able to see the comment section?
Hey, Michael and Tom, this is Wade. Okay, now they're back.
All right.
So the chat keeps kind of going and coming and going.
Okay. Somebody had their hand up, I saw, but I didn't catch who it was. Oh, did you see who might have had their hand up?
Nobody has it up at the moment. I forget who it was.
Interesting. Sonia says, I keep losing the chat window. Also, there are people who could not connect. Said presentation was full.
There was no limit on it.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You can limit it, but I know for a fact it wasn't limited.
When can I get a copy of the underwriter's tool, Robert Woodcock? Because I'm in.
I think I might know why it's limited.
Okay.
Because it was a 30-day trial.
Okay. Oh.
I may have read something in there that it's limited, forcing you to upgrade.
Well, that's good that we did
the marketing thing.
That's good.
Yeah, you're going to have to accept or decline after today.
Yep. So anybody have any other questions as it relates to either the underwriter's tool or any other questions? I'd like to hear comments about this format. We're still working some bugs, but I think overall, I think it's a good format. What do you guys think, Michael?
Yeah, I'm not sure why the screen went full and the chat room disappeared.
Go ahead, Michael.
So to answer Woody's question, it was agreed at the last AT meeting last Saturday to I expressed a concern, frankly, to the AT. I was asking them to kind of help me solve a was just logistics regarding if depending on who was the quantity of people that were going to be interested in using this tool. I was a little concerned that basically I would get several people potentially coming and asking me to get a copy of the tool. It is Excel, but the caveat to that is that it still is a macro and it still has a template. And the concern I have is that it's, unless you're still semi-Excel savvy, you might do something wrong, and I can just make phone calls or emails related to that. So my reach out to the A team was to have set this up, and Ziggy was the gentleman at the A team that offered to do that. So I'm sure we can figure out a way on this very same recording to maybe make some notes that Ziggy is perhaps the main point of contact for this. So the shorter answer is you can become a member and you just contact Ziggy and post his contact information up on this post recording.
Yeah, and maybe next time if we do another rerun of this presentation with the entire group, maybe we can have Ziggy on at that point as well.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Sonia says, we were playing around with the tool and really like it. Ziggy the person, so that's what you just mentioned. Jim Greer, I'm not sure I understand the process of assigning numbers like 50 or 30 to priority and final. Can you explain the significance of that again?
Let me show you as an example. I'm going to add on, just bear with me, I'm going to add on, let's say, another borrower. It'll do its macro thing of copying a new borrower from the template, its own tab.
You have this.
Like I said, it runs a lot quicker when I'm not doing video share. It's kind of funny. So now it's, oh, I need to share, so hold on. Sorry. All right, so I'm sharing again. I just added on another borrower here for Jim. So let me kind of go one by one here on priority versus final. Final means what was your final decision on your underwriting criteria? Whatever that underwriting criteria may be. I'm not telling you what it should be, but like I'll give you an example of what I've chosen to do. I've chosen that field, the final column, to be a scale of 1 to 100. It always, both numbers, priority and final, are always 50 by default. And you can control what that default is in the template too. But the point is that I use it as a 50 as a neutral ground, meaning I'm neither here nor there on that borrower. I haven't made a decision. The moment that changes to something greater than 50, I feel better about that borrower than I did before, let's say. So for example, right now, Bo is not looking too good here. He's at 30. My underwriting criteria said he was less than 50% of what I was looking for, if you want to look at it that way. Let's say that Tom, on the other hand, let's say I felt much better about him and he was at, say, 60 in terms of a scale. Again, you could just define that scale. So you can see now here that there's 30 for Bo, 60 for Tom, and neither here nor there on Jim. Now, just imagine here, let's say I had 20 different borrowers that I'm probably dealing with. If I want to kind of keep my eyeball focused on the top part and really just pay attention to the top people that I want to work with, I can choose to sort that row. And the way you sort that in Excel is you just highlight the rows that you want to sort and then just go to sort and just sort it by the column. And in this case, it's the Y. And I got to go largest to smallest. So here you can see I can bubble to the top who the top borrowers that I want to work with and keep them first and foremost at the top of my list. And I could even, keep the dialogue going as far as comments saying, check in with them every once in a while. Priorities, same thing. If let's say that Tom's a top borrower, but in terms of my decision with him, but let's just simply he's a jerk and I don't want to deal with him so much. He's not so much a priority to me. He's a great rehabber. He's got all what it takes to be a rehabber, but he's not that important to me. I'm never going to get business from him. So I'm going to maybe put him at maybe a 40% priority. Now I can say, well, I'll see who it is who's priority to me and who's the top tier borrower. So I, again, highlight all of the list, and I can say, well, instead of how good they are, it's more of how important they are to me. So I can say sort it by the X column, largest to smallest. I could even add a level that says then sort by the Y column. which means not only do I want to see who's top priority to me, but also who's all as a second tier, who's the top tier of rehabbers as well. So Jim kind of bubbles to the top because he's neither here nor there. He's 50-50 on priority as well as final. So maybe I just start underwriting him a lot closer and try to bump up his priority relative to 50, or maybe it goes down. It doesn't. It's sort of neutral at this point, and that's the whole point. So I'll kind of pause there because hopefully I answered that question. Jim, got it. Great, thanks. Good.
What do you think?
So it looks like we got all the questions sort of out there.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else you want to share to wrap it up? Go, Michael.
Yeah, like I said, if you are interested in going beta user, then Ziggy's the guy.
All right.
So I did post 2 links to the ateamhangout.com front page, and one is, if you haven't registered yet, you can click on that and register for the event. If you've already registered, you could go in and just log straight into the event. So there's actually 2 links, depending on whether you've already pre-registered or whether you need to register for the event.
All right.
All right.
Robert asked, how do I get a hold of Ziggy?
Well, he just emailed. He just emailed and said he couldn't be on the event. So I emailed him back and said, I was sorry, but we'll have full access next week.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. All right. Well, I think unless there's something else, should we wrap it up? Bo, you good to go?
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, well, I guess are we going to do the same time next week on Tuesday?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I think our goal is to have these every Tuesday at 4 o'clock, same time. And I'm sure sometimes it may not work for me, but I don't always need to be the one leading it. So if I'm not available, I'll make sure somebody else is available to lead it. And so, yeah, let's plan on it once a week and see how things go. If any feedback we get is really appreciated, good or bad. And one more time, Michael, thank you. Really appreciate your efforts.
You're welcome, Tom. Thank you.
You can tell it took a lot of work to get that done. All right. We'll catch up later then, guys.
All right. Have a good day.